When Samantha agreed to work at the Velvet Rose, she thought it would be temporary. 6 months, maybe a year, just until she saved enough to finish her graphic design degree. The exclusive lounge in downtown Manhattan catered to a clientele she'd only read about in magazines: tech moguls, politicians, old money families who still had their names on buildings across the city. It paid 3 times what she'd made at the cafe near her apartment, and the tips were even better. She told herself the late nights and demanding customers were worth it. She never imagined that one evening would upend everything she thought she knew about safety, power, and the dangerous line between protection and possession. The night started like any other Thursday. Samantha arrived at 7, tying her hair back into a sleek ponytail that showed off the elegant line of her neck. The black dress uniform hugged her curves just enough to be sophisticated without crossing into provocation. She'd learned quickly that presentation mattered here. The regulars expected perfection, flawless service, discreet conversation, and the ability to read a room better than any book. "Table 12 wants you specifically," Marcus, the floor manager, told her as she clocked in. His expression held a warning she'd learned to recognize. "Richard Ashford. He's been drinking since 5. Samantha's stomach tightened. Ashford was old money, the kind that came with entitlement soaked so deep it showed in every gesture. He'd requested her before, always leaving generous tips that felt more like down payments on something she'd never agreed to sell. But bills didn't pay themselves, and she'd gotten good at maintaining professional distance. "I've got it," she said, smoothing her dress. The main floor of the Velvet Rose was all dark wood and ambient lighting, designed to make every patron feel like they'd stepped into a private club from another era. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers. The bar gleamed with top-shelf liquor that cost more per bottle than Samantha's monthly rent. She wove between tables with practiced grace, her tray balanced perfectly. Table 12 sat in a corner alcove, semi-private, but still visible from the main floor. Richard Ashford sprawled in the leather booth, his tie loosened, his eyes tracking her approach with an intensity that made her skin prickle. 2 associates flanked him, both looking uncomfortable. "There she is," Ashford said, his words slightly slurred. "I was beginning to think you were avoiding me, sweetheart." "Good evening, Mr. Ashford," Samantha replied, her smile professional. "What can I get for you tonight?" "Your phone number would be a start." Fielded this request a dozen times. "I'm afraid that's not on the menu, but we have an excellent selection of whiskeys if you'd like a recommendation." Ashford leaned forward, and she caught the sharp scent of expensive cologne mixed with alcohol. "Everything has a price, doesn't it? Name yours." "My job is to serve drinks, Mr. Ashford. I'm very good at it. May I suggest the Macallan 25? Something darkened in his expression. The 2 associates exchanged glances. One of them started to say something, but Ashford waved him off. "You know what I like about you, Samantha. You've got standards. That's rare, but everyone bends eventually." Before she could respond, his hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to trap. "Sit with me. Just for a few minutes. Is that really so much to ask?" Samantha's heart hammered against her ribs. The lounge had security, but they were discreet, trained to handle situations without causing scenes. She could call for help, but it would mean making this a confrontation, and confrontations with men like Ashford had consequences. Jobs got lost. Reputations got ruined. "Mr. Ashford, please let go. Is there a problem here?" The voice cut through the jazz music like a blade, deep, accented, and carrying an authority that made everyone at the table freeze. Samantha turned, and her breath caught. She'd seen him before. Not here, but in the VIP section upstairs, the area reserved for guests who valued privacy above all else. Yegor Denisov. The name circulated in whispers among the staff. Russian. Powerful. Dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with loud threats and everything to do with quiet certainty. He stood at the edge of their alcove now, hands in the pockets of an impeccably tailored charcoal suit. Tall, perhaps 6'3", with sharp cheekbones and ice-blue eyes that seemed to see everything. His dark hair was styled with casual precision. He looked like he'd stepped out of a European fashion magazine, except magazines didn't capture the predatory stillness in the way he held himself. Ashford's grip on her wrist loosened slightly. "This is a private conversation." "No," Yegor said, his accent turning the word into something final. "It's harassment. Remove your hand." For a long moment, nobody moved. The jazz continued playing. Somewhere across the lounge, someone laughed, but in their corner, the tension coiled like a living thing. Ashford released her wrist. "I don't know who you think you are." I know exactly who I am. Yeager's gaze shifted to Samantha, and something in those ice-blue eyes softened fractionally. And I know who she is. She's mine. The words hung in the air like a claim, like a brand, like a promise Samantha had never agreed to but somehow felt settle around her anyway. Yours. Ashford's face flushed. She's a waitress. She doesn't belong to anyone. You're wrong on both counts. Yeager extended his hand toward Samantha, palm up, an invitation rather than a demand. Come. Every instinct told Samantha to run. From Ashford, from this dangerous stranger, from whatever was happening that she didn't understand. But Ashford's grip had left a red mark on her wrist, and Yeager's hand was steady, and sometimes the devil you don't know is safer than the one breathing alcohol in your face. She placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm, strong, careful. He drew her out of the alcove and away from the table with the kind of natural authority that made it seem like the most obvious thing in the world. She should protest. She should explain that she didn't know him, that she wasn't anyone's, that this was her job and she couldn't just walk away from a customer. But Ashford's associates were already pulling him back, murmuring urgently. And Yeager was guiding her across the main floor, past the bar, toward the private elevator that led to the VIP section where she'd never been allowed. She started. Not here, he said quietly. Upstairs, we talk upstairs. The elevator doors closed behind them, sealing them in polished brass and silence. Samantha pulled her hand free, her pulse racing. I don't know what just happened, but I need to get back to work. Marcus is going to. Marcus will not say anything. Yeager pressed the button for the top floor. I own 20% of this establishment. Your job is secure. Of course he did. Men like him always own pieces of places like this. That doesn't give you the right to claim I'm yours in front of customers. Would you have preferred I let Ashford continue? I would have preferred to handle it myself. How? The single word was a challenge, not mockery. Genuine curiosity lit his expression. He had already crossed a line. Men like him do not respect boundaries unless forced. What would you have done? Samantha's jaw tightened. Because he was right, and she hated that he was right. Called security. Security would have escorted him out. He would have complained to management. Management would have questioned why you provoked a valued customer. You would have been blamed. You don't know that. Yes, Yeager said, his gaze holding hers. I do. The elevator opened onto a floor Samantha had only glimpsed through doors held open by other staff. It was quieter here, more intimate. Leather seating areas, a private bar, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering Manhattan sky. Only 3 other people occupied the space, all engaged in quiet conversation that looked more like business than pleasure. Yeager led her to a corner booth far from the others, gesturing for her to sit. She did, more because her legs felt unsteady than from obedience. He slid into the seat across from her, and for the first time, she could study him without the chaos of the moment before. Handsome didn't cover it. He had the kind of face that belonged in old paintings, aristocratic, severe, beautiful in a way that was almost cruel. But there were shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights, and a faint scar along his jaw that told stories he'd probably never share. Why did you do that? She asked. Because Ashford is a predator who believes money gives him ownership of people. Yeager's expression didn't change. And because you deserved better than to be cornered by a drunk. So you cornered me instead. A ghost of something that might have been amusement touched his mouth. Am I cornering you? The elevator works both ways. You can leave. Samantha glanced toward the elevator, then back at him. If I leave, will Ashford be waiting downstairs? No, he will not return to the Velvet Rose. I will make certain of it. How? Does it matter? It should. It absolutely should matter. But Samantha found herself more focused on the way Yeager was looking at her, not the way Ashford had, like she was something to be acquired, but like she was a puzzle he actually wanted to solve. You said I was yours, she said. Why? Because it was the only thing Ashford would respect. A claim, possession. Yeager leaned back slightly. If I had simply told him to stop, he would have seen it as interference in his business. If you belong to me, he cannot touch you without consequences he is unwilling to face. I don't belong to anyone. I know. His voice was soft, almost gentle, but he does not need to know that. Samantha's head was spinning. This entire night had careened off the rails into territory she didn't recognize. What do you want from me? Yeager was quiet for a long moment, his ice-blue eyes studying her with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable but somehow wasn't. I want to know your name, your real name, not the one on your uniform tag. You already knew it, you said it downstairs. I know what others call you, I want to hear it from you. It was such a small thing, barely a question, but something about the way he asked it made it feel significant. Samantha, Samantha Clark. Samantha, he said it slowly, like he was tasting each syllable. I am Yegor Denisov. I know who you are. The words came out before she could stop. His eyebrow lifted. Do you? People talk, Russian, wealthy, dangerous. She met his gaze directly. Mafia. Most men would have denied it, laughed it off, gotten defensive. Yegor simply nodded as if she'd commented on the weather. People talk too much, but they are not entirely wrong. The admission should have terrified her, should have sent her running for that elevator and out of this building and away from whatever mess she'd stumbled into. But there was something almost refreshing about his honesty, the lack of pretense. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Because if we are to maintain the illusion that you are mine, you should know exactly what that means, who I am, what people will assume, the danger that comes with proximity to me. Yegor's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. And because you asked directly, I do not lie to direct questions. Samantha processed this, her mind racing. This is insane. I serve drinks. I go to community college. I have a studio apartment in Queens with a radiator that barely works. I don't belong in your world. Few people belong anywhere by design. Most of us simply end up places. That's not an answer. No, Yegor agreed. It is not. Here is the answer. You intrigued me the first time I saw you 3 weeks ago. You handled a difficult customer with grace and intelligence. You did not flirt or pander. You simply did your job with competence. It was refreshing. 3 weeks ago, she remembered that night, a tech entrepreneur who'd gotten too loud, too demanding. She'd managed to calm him and get him out without incident. She'd never noticed anyone watching. So you've been watching me? Yes. Again, that brutal honesty. That's creepy. Perhaps, but I am a careful man, Samantha. I do not intervene in situations unless I understand them fully. I have watched you handle demanding people with patience I do not possess. I have watched you comfort a coworker who was crying in the break room. I have watched you refuse advances from men who offer you money, gifts, opportunities. He paused. You have principles. In my world, that is rare enough to notice. Samantha didn't know what to do with this information. Part of her was angry at the invasion of privacy. Part of her was frightened by the implications. But a small, traitorous part was flattered that someone had seen her, really seen her, in a way that had nothing to do with her appearance or her availability. What happens now? She asked. That depends on you. We can maintain the fiction that you are under my protection. Ashford will spread the word, and you will not be bothered by men like him again. Or you can walk away, return to your life, and I will ensure your employment here remains secure regardless. And if I choose the protection, Yegor's gaze intensified, then you would need to be seen with me, publicly, enough to make the claim believable, dinners, events, nothing you are uncomfortable with but enough visibility to establish the connection. Fake dating a Russian mob boss. Samantha laughed, but it came out shaky. This is insane. Yes, Yegor agreed. But sanity is overrated and you are practical. Consider the benefits, safety, security. The ability to finish your degree without working yourself to exhaustion. No more men like Ashford. What do you get out of it? The question seemed to catch him off guard. He was quiet for a moment, and Samantha had the strange sense that he was deciding how much truth to share. Company, he said finally. I am tired of women who want my money or my power. I am tired of pretense. You are real, Samantha. That is valuable to me. It was the loneliest thing she'd ever heard someone say, and it cracked something in her chest. She thought about her own life, the long shifts, the predatory customers, the exhaustion that came from constantly being on guard. She thought about finishing her degree, about security, about not being afraid every time a drunk customer got too familiar. She thought about ice blue eyes that looked at her like she mattered. I need time to think about this, she said. Of course. Yegor reached into his jacket and pulled out a card, sliding it across the table. My private number. Call me when you have decided, or do not call. The choice is yours and I will respect it. Samantha picked up the card. Heavy cardstock, embossed lettering. Just a name and a number. No title, no company. A direct line to a dangerous man offering her a dangerous choice. She should say no. She should walk away. But when she stood to leave, and Yegor stood with her, guiding her to the elevator with that same careful courtesy, she didn't throw the card away. She slipped it into her pocket, feeling the weight of it against her hip like a secret. Thank you, she said as the elevator doors opened, for helping me tonight. You are welcome, Samantha Clark. The way he said her full name made it sound like something precious. I hope to hear from you. But if I do not, I hope you find what you are looking for. The elevator descended, carrying her back to the main floor, to her normal life, to the reality where she was just a waitress trying to make rent. But even as she returned to her tables, finishing her shift with mechanical efficiency, she couldn't stop thinking about what had happened upstairs. She couldn't stop thinking about Yegor Denisov. And she couldn't stop wondering if maybe, just maybe, walking into danger might be the safest thing she'd ever done. 2 days passed before Samantha called the number on the card. 2 days of replaying the conversation, of researching Yegor Denisov online and finding almost nothing concrete. Just rumors, speculation, carefully worded news articles about business dealings that were probably fronts for something else. 2 days of Marcus giving her worried looks whenever Ashford's name came up in conversation, of jumping at shadows, of realizing that going back to normal wasn't actually an option anymore. She called on Saturday morning from her apartment, staring out the window at the Grey Queen's skyline. He answered on the second ring. Samantha. Not hello, not who is this, just her name like he'd been waiting. I've thought about your offer, she said, her heart hammering. And? A pause, then, I would expect nothing less, tell me. First, this stays professional. I'm not sleeping with you just because we're pretending to date. Agreed. I am not interested in coercion, Samantha. Anything physical between us would only happen if you wanted it, genuinely, without pressure. The certainty in his voice settled something in her chest. Second, I keep working. I'm not going to be some kept woman sitting around waiting for you. Also agreed. Although I would prefer you work somewhere safer than the Velvet Rose. That's not your decision to make. No, Yegor said quietly. It is not. I withdraw the suggestion. Samantha blinked. She'd expected an argument, maybe even an ultimatum. The easy acquiescence threw her. Third, I want honesty. If this gets dangerous, if there's something I need to know, you tell me. No surprises. That is the most difficult condition, but I will try my best. My world does not always allow for advanced warning, but I will never deliberately keep you in ignorance if it affects your safety. It wasn't a perfect answer, but it felt true. Okay, then I'm in for now. We can try this and see if it works. When can I see you? The question sent an unexpected thrill through her. I have tonight off. Then I will pick you up at 7. We will have dinner. Somewhere public, somewhere people will see us, somewhere you feel safe. He paused. Text me your address. After they hung up, Samantha sat on her worn couch, staring at her phone, wondering what she'd just agreed to. This wasn't her world. She didn't belong in expensive restaurants with dangerous men. She belonged in classrooms and coffee shops and quiet nights with Netflix. But Ashford's grip on her wrist had left more than a red mark. It had left a reminder that her normal world wasn't as safe as she'd pretended. And maybe accepting protection from one dangerous man was better than being vulnerable to all of them. At 7 exactly, her buzzer rang. Samantha had changed outfits 4 times before settling on a simple black dress, nice enough for dinner but not trying too hard. She'd left her hair down, natural curls framing her face, minimal jewelry, comfortable heels. She opened her apartment door to find Yegor standing in her hallway looking impossibly out of place. The charcoal suit had been replaced by dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms. He held a single white rose. You look beautiful, he said simply. You look like you're about to buy my building. A small smile touched his mouth. I already own your building. I looked up your address. Samantha stared at him. You're joking. Yes, but your expression was worth the lie. He offered her the rose. Are you ready? She took the flower, surprised by the gesture. I thought we were keeping this professional. We are. Professional does not mean without courtesy. He waited as she grabbed her purse, then offered his arm. My car is downstairs. His car turned out to be a sleek black Mercedes, driven by a silent man who never looked directly at them. The interior smelled like leather and something expensive Samantha couldn't identify. Yegor sat beside her, not touching but close enough that she could feel his warmth. Where are we going? She asked as they pulled into traffic. Per se, it is a restaurant. I know what per se is. Samantha turned to stare at him. That's one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. You need reservations months in advance. I made a call. Of course he did. Men like Yegor Denisov didn't wait for reservations. They made calls and doors opened. The restaurant was everything Samantha had read about, elegant, intimate, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. The staff greeted Yegor by name, leading them to a corner table that offered both privacy and visibility. Perfect for being seen together without being overheard. As they settled into their seats, Samantha caught the glances from other diners. Curiosity, recognition. She could almost hear the questions forming. Who is she? Where did she come from? What is Yegor Denisov doing with her? You are nervous, Yegor observed. I'm out of my depth, she corrected. There's a difference. Perhaps, but you hide it well. You have excellent composure. Years of dealing with difficult customers. No, his ice blue eyes held hers. It is more than that. You have a strength that is innate, not learned. I suspect you have always had it. The compliment was unexpected and disarming. Samantha busied herself with the menu, trying to ignore the way her pulse kicked up whenever he looked at her like that, like he could see past all her defenses to something underneath. They ordered, and the sommelier brought wine that probably cost more than Samantha's monthly rent. As they waited for the first course, Yegor leaned back slightly, studying her with that same intense focus he'd had in the Velvet Rose. Tell me about yourself, Samantha Clark, not the facts I can discover through research. Tell me something true. She took a sip of wine, considering. I grew up in foster care, bounced around until I aged out at 18. No tragic backstory, just statistics. I worked my way through community college because I'm good at graphic design and I like the idea of creating things that last longer than a shift at a bar. No family. Not in the traditional sense. A former foster sister I talk to sometimes. Samantha met his gaze. What about you? Do Russian mob bosses have families? Some do, I do not anymore. My parents died when I was young. I had a brother. His expression shuddered. He is also gone. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago, but it shaped who I became. Loss often does. There was a story there, something painful and complicated. Samantha wanted to ask, but the first course arrived and the moment passed. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, and Samantha found herself relaxing despite the absurdity of the situation. You said you wanted company, she said eventually. Is that really all this is? Yegor set down his fork, giving her his full attention. When you spend years surrounded by people who want something from you, genuine connection becomes rare. Everyone has an angle, a petition, a favor to ask. You learn to trust no one, to keep everyone at a distance. It is profoundly so. So I'm what? A novelty, someone who doesn't want anything from you. No, you are someone who sees me as a person first. Even knowing what I am, you ask direct questions. You set boundaries. You treated me like a human being capable of respecting those boundaries. He paused. That is not novelty, that is precious. The honesty in his voice made her chest ache. She thought about her own loneliness, the way she kept people at arm's length because maybe they weren't so different after all. What do you want from life, Yegor? The question seemed to surprise him. No one has asked me that in years. Well, I'm asking. He was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing the stem of his wine glass. Peace, the ability to sleep without wondering who will betray me next, to walk into a room and not calculate exits and threats, to trust someone completely. His gaze lifted to hers. Perhaps that is impossible. It's not impossible, Samantha said softly. It's just rare. Like you. The words hung between them, intimate despite the public setting. Samantha felt heat rise in her cheeks, felt something shift in her chest that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with the dangerous territory of actual feeling. The meal continued, course after exquisite course, and they talked. About art and music, about the city, about dreams deferred and paths not taken. Yegor was surprisingly well-read, with opinions on everything from architecture to philosophy. He made her laugh with dry observations about the other diners. He listened when she talked about her design projects with genuine interest. By the time dessert arrived, Samantha had almost forgotten this was supposed to be fake. As they left the restaurant, Yegor's hand found the small of her back, guiding her through the door. The touch was proprietary but not possessive, protective without being controlling. Outside, the driver waited with the car, but Yegor paused. Would you like to walk for a while? The park is safe at this hour. Samantha should say no, should let him drive her home, end the evening, maintain the professional distance she'd insisted on. But the night air was crisp, and she wasn't ready for this to end. Yes, she said. They walked into Central Park, following the lamplit paths. The city sounds faded to a gentle murmur. Yegor kept pace beside her, his hands in his pockets, his presence both comforting and dangerous. Thank you for tonight, Samantha said, for making this easy. It is not a hardship to spend an evening with you, Samantha. Still, you could have made this transactional. Cold, you didn't. Because that is not what I want. I told you I am tired of pretense. Yegor stopped walking, turning to face her. If we are to do this, I want it to be as real as possible within the boundaries you set. I want you to feel safe with me. I do. The admission surprised her, but it was true. Despite everything, the danger, the lies they were selling to the world, the vast difference in their lives, she felt safe with him. I don't know why, but I do. Good. His hand lifted, hesitated, then gently tucked a curl behind her ear. The touch was brief, almost chaste, but it sent electric. Because I meant what I said at the Velvet Rose. While you are mine, even in pretense, no one will harm you. I promise you that. Samantha's breath caught. The way he looked at her in the lamplight, all sharp angles and shadows and something that looked almost like longing. It would be so easy to close the distance between them, to see if his mouth was as dangerous as the rest of him. But she'd set boundaries and she needed to keep them, for both their sakes. I should get home, she said quietly. Of course. The drive back to Queens was quiet, comfortable. When they arrived at her building, Yeager walked her to her door like an old-fashioned gentleman. When will I see you again? He asked. I work Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday. He took her hand, lifting it to his lips in a gesture that should have been corny but somehow wasn't. Good night, Samantha. Good night, Yeager. She watched him walk away, tall and elegant and dangerous, before closing her door and leaning against it. Her hand still tingled where he'd kissed it. Her heart still raced from the nearness of him. This was supposed to be fake, a business arrangement with mutual benefits. So why did it feel like she was already falling into something terrifyingly real? The next 2 weeks unfolded in a strange dream. Samantha continued working at the Velvet Rose, but the atmosphere... Ashford never returned. Other customers who'd been too familiar suddenly kept their distance. Marcus stopped giving her the difficult tables, claiming orders from management that Samantha now knew included Yeager. Wednesday nights became theirs. Dinners at exclusive restaurants, a gallery opening where Yeager held her hand and explained the paintings with surprising insight, a quiet evening at his penthouse overlooking the city where they talked until 3 a.m. about everything and nothing. He never pushed, never crossed the boundaries she'd set, but the tension between them grew with each meeting, each accidental touch, each moment when their eyes met and held for a beat too long. Samantha found herself thinking about him at odd hours, wondering what he was doing, if he was safe, if he thought about her too. She caught herself checking her phone for his texts, smiling when they arrived, always courteous, never demanding, often unexpectedly sweet. Her friend Keisha noticed. Girl, you're glowing. This fake relationship seems pretty real to me. They were having coffee at their usual spot, a tiny cafe near campus. Samantha had told Keisha a sanitized version of events, leaving out the Mafia part, emphasizing the protection aspect. It's not real, Samantha insisted. It's an arrangement. MMHMM, and that's why you smile every time your phone buzzes. That's an arrangement smile. Samantha's phone buzzed on cue. A text from Yeager. I saw this and thought of you. Below it, an image of a street mural, bold colors, geometric shapes, beautifully executed. Her smile was automatic. Not real, Keisha repeated skeptically. Sure, Sam, keep telling yourself that. But that night, alone in her apartment, Samantha let herself admit the truth. She was falling for Yeager Denisov. Not the dangerous mob boss, not the wealthy businessman, but the man who remembered she liked abstract art, who listened when she talked about her design projects, who looked at her like she was the most interesting person in any room. It was foolish. It was dangerous. She was doing it anyway. The shift came on a Thursday, 3 weeks into their arrangement. Samantha was at Yeager's penthouse for what had become their routine dinner. He'd been teaching her to cook Russian dishes, patient with her mistakes, laughing when she mispronounced the names. They were working on pelmeni, standing side by side at his massive kitchen island, when his phone rang. Yeager glanced at the screen, and something shuddered in his expression. I need to take this, he said, already moving toward his office. Of course. But through the partially open door, Samantha could hear his voice change, harder, colder, speaking rapid Russian that sounded like commands. She couldn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. This was the other Yeager, the one who controlled an empire built on things she didn't want to think about too closely. He returned 15 minutes later, his expression carefully neutral. Is everything okay? Samantha asked. A business matter, nothing to concern you. It was the first time he'd shut her out, and it stung more than it should have. Yeager! Samantha! He crossed to her, taking her hands. There are parts of my life I cannot share, not because I do not trust you, but because knowing would put you in danger. Please understand. She wanted to argue, wanted to demand he honor their agreement about honesty, but the worry in his eyes stopped her. Whatever the call had been about, it had shaken him. Okay, she said quietly, But if something's wrong, if you need to talk, I know where to find you." He squeezed her hands. "Thank you." They finished cooking in relative silence, the easy warmth of earlier replaced by tension. Over dinner, Yeager was distracted, his attention clearly elsewhere. Samantha tried to draw him out, but he deflected every attempt. Finally, she set down her fork. "Maybe I should go. Give you space to deal with whatever this is." "No." The word came out sharp, almost desperate. Yeager caught himself, gentling his tone. "No, please stay. I am sorry. I am not good company tonight, but I would like you to stay." There was something raw in his voice, something that sounded like loneliness. Samantha remembered what he'd said about wanting company, about being tired of isolation. "Okay," she said. "I'll stay." They moved to the living room after dinner. Samantha curled up on the massive leather couch while Yeager poured them both vodka. He sat beside her, closer than usual, and for a while they just existed in silence, watching the city lights through the floor-to-ceiling windows. "My brother died 10 years ago," Yeager said suddenly. "Alexei, he was younger than me. Brilliant, charming, everything I was not. I was supposed to protect him. I failed." Samantha turned to look at him, saw the pain etched in every line of his face. "It was my fault," he continued, staring into his glass. "He got involved in business he should not have, made deals with people who had no honor. I warned him, but he would not listen. He thought he was invincible." Yeager's jaw tightened. "They found him in an alley, 3 bullets. He died before the ambulance arrived." "Yeager," Samantha breathed. "I'm so sorry. I swore then that I would never let anyone I cared about be vulnerable again, that I would build enough power, enough fear, that no one would dare touch what was mine." He looked at her finally, and his eyes were haunted. "But power does not protect against everything. Sometimes it makes you a bigger target." Understanding crashed over Samantha. "The phone call tonight, someone threatened you." "Not me, someone I care about." His hand found hers, gripping it like a lifeline. "I will handle it, but it reminded me of Alexei, of how quickly everything can be taken away." Samantha set down her glass and moved closer, taking his face in her hands. "Hey, look at me." When his ice-blue eyes focused on her, she said firmly, "You are not responsible for other people's choices. Your brother made his own decisions, and whoever called tonight, whatever threat they made, you will deal with it because that is what you do. But you are not alone, Yeager." "Samantha, I mean it. This started as an arrangement, but it's not that anymore. Not for me. I care about you, the real you, and I'm not going anywhere." The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Yeager stared at her like she'd offered him something impossible, something he'd stopped believing he could have. "You should go," he said roughly. "You should walk away from this, from me, before it is too late." "It's already too late." Samantha's thumb traced his cheekbone. "I'm already in too deep. This is not the life you wanted. No, but maybe it's the life I need." Yeager made a sound low in his throat, something between a groan and a surrender, and then his mouth was on hers. The kiss was everything Samantha had imagined and nothing she'd prepared for. Yeager kissed like he did everything else, with intensity, with focus, with a controlled passion that threatened to break its leash. His hands cupped her face, gentle despite the hunger in his touch, and Samantha melted into him, months of tension and denied attraction finally finding release. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Yeager pressed his forehead to hers. "I do not deserve you," he murmured. "That's not your decision to make." He laughed, the sound shaky. "You are dangerous, Samantha Clark, more dangerous than any weapon I have ever faced." "Good. Maybe you need someone dangerous in your..." They stayed like that, wrapped around each other until the early hours of the morning. No more kissing, just holding, talking, existing together in a way that felt more intimate than anything physical. Yeager told her about Alexei, about the guilt he carried, about the life he'd built, and the cost it had taken. Samantha told him about her fears, her dreams, the loneliness that had shaped her into someone who kept the world at arm's length. By the time the sun started lightening the sky, Samantha felt like she knew Yeager Denisov, not the mob boss, not the wealthy businessman, but the man underneath. Broken in some ways, dangerous in others, but fundamentally good in the ways that mattered. "Stay with me today," Yeager said as dawn broke over Manhattan. "Call in sick, stay." Samantha should say no. She had responsibilities, classes, work, but the vulnerability in his eyes made the decision easy. "Okay," she whispered. That day marked the true beginning of their relationship. No more pretense, no more arrangement. Just two people who'd found something real in the middle of a dangerous game. But reality has a way of intruding on even the most perfect moments. The call came 3 days later. Samantha was at home, working on a design project, when her phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. "Hello, Samantha Clark." The voice was male, accented, unfamiliar. Who is this? I wanted to warn you. You are involved with Yegor Denisov, yes. Ice flooded her veins. I'm hanging up. Wait, please, you are in danger. Denisov has enemies, powerful enemies. They know about you. They will use you to hurt him. How did you get this number? That is not important. What is important is that you understand the risk. Yegor cannot protect you from everything. You should leave, disappear before it is too late. The line went dead. Samantha sat frozen. She should call Yegor. She should tell him immediately, but something about the call felt wrong, too convenient, too scripted, unless it was real. She called Yegor. He answered immediately like he'd been waiting. Someone just called me, she said without preamble. They warned me that I'm in danger because of you. Silence. Then where are you? Home. Stay there, lock the doors. I am sending someone to watch your building. I will be there in 20 minutes. Do not leave, do not answer the door for anyone except me. Yegor, 20 minutes, Samantha, I promise. He was there in 15, bursting through her door with 2 men flanking him. Samantha had never seen him like this, controlled fury radiating from every movement, his ice-blue eyes blazing. Tell me everything, he commanded. Every word. Samantha recounted the conversation, watching as Yegor's expression grew darker with each detail. When she finished, he pulled out his phone and fired off rapid texts, his jaw clenched. This is Dmitri, he said finally. A rival. He is trying to frighten you, to drive a wedge between us. Is he right? Am I in danger? Yegor crossed to her, taking her shoulders. I will not lie to you. Yes, being close to me comes with risks, but I have taken precautions. You have security watching you at all times, even when you do not see them. Your apartment building has Your route to work is monitored. You've been having me followed, protected. There is a difference. His grip tightened. I should have told you, but I knew you would argue, would resist, would say you do not need protection, and you would be wrong. Samantha's head spun. This is insane. I'm a graphic design student. I wait tables. I'm not cut out for this. No, you are stronger than you believe, but I will understand if this is too much. If you want out, I will arrange it. New identity, new city, enough money to finish your degree and start over. I will do this for you, Samantha, because I care about you too much to let you be harmed because of me. The offer was genuine. She could see it in his eyes. He would let her go, would ensure her safety, even though it would destroy him. I'm not going anywhere, Samantha heard herself say. Samantha, I said I was in this. I meant it. Some creepy phone call isn't going to scare me off. She stepped closer into his space. But you need to be honest with me, all of it, no more secrets about my safety. Yegor exhaled, something like relief flashing across his face. Agreed, complete honesty. And I want to learn to protect myself. Self-defense, weapons if necessary. I'm not going to be a liability. You are not a liability. No, but I could be an asset. Teach me. Yegor studied her for a long moment, and Samantha could see him recalculating. Very well, but we do this correctly. Professional training, no half measures. I wouldn't expect anything less from you. His men left after securing her apartment with additional measures Samantha didn't fully understand. When they were alone, Yegor pulled her into his arms, holding her like she might disappear. You terrify me, he murmured into her hair. Good, we're even. That night, Yegor didn't leave. He stayed, sleeping on her couch despite her protests that he would. In the morning, she woke to find him already awake, watching her with an expression that made her heart ache. What? She asked. I am trying to understand how I got so lucky. Lucky? Someone just threatened me because of you. Yes, and you did not run. You chose to stay. You chose me. Yegor crossed to the bed, sitting on the edge. Do you understand how rare that is? To be chosen not for what I can provide, but despite the danger I bring. Samantha reached for his hand. I choose you because of who you are, Yegor, all of it. The danger, the past, the complicated present. I choose you. He kissed her then, soft and reverent, like she was something sacred. When he pulled back, his eyes were suspiciously bright. I will keep you safe, he promised. Whatever it takes. I know. The training started that week. Yegor hired the best, a former Spetsnaz operative who taught Samantha how to throw a punch, how to break holds, how to use everyday. It was brutal, exhausting work, but Samantha threw herself into it with the same determination she'd brought to everything else in her life. She also learned about Yegor's world. Not the sanitized version, but the truth. The businesses he ran, both legitimate and otherwise. The network of loyalty and fear he'd built. The enemies he'd made, and the alliances he maintained through careful negotiation and strategic power plays. It should have repulsed her. Instead, she found herself fascinated by the complexity of it, the chess game he played where the stakes were life and death. You should have been a general, she told him one night after he'd explained a particularly intricate deal. I am a general, just of a different kind of army. Fair point. They settled into a new rhythm. Samantha still worked at the Velvet Rose, but now she had visible security, one of Yeager's men stationed nearby, a statement that she was protected. She continued her classes, though she'd moved out of her Queens apartment into a safer building Yeager owned in Manhattan. "I'm paying rent," she'd insisted. "Of course," Yeager had agreed, then charged her $1 a month. 3 months into their relationship, Dmitri made his move. Samantha was leaving class when a car pulled up beside her, the back door opening. A man she didn't recognize gestured for her to get in. "Mr. Denisov would like to see you." Every instinct screamed. This wasn't one of Yeager's men. She started to turn to run when she felt something hard press against her spine. "Get in the car, Miss Clark. Do not make a scene. I would hate for your classmates to be caught in crossfire." Terror flooded her system, but so did training. Samantha evaluated her options in a split second. The man was bigger, armed, and threatening civilians. Fighting here would endanger others, but if she got in the car, she was on his terms. She got in the car. They drove for 20 minutes, into an industrial area Samantha didn't recognize. The entire time she cataloged details, the driver's face, the license plate, the route. Her phone was in her pocket, GPS active. Yeager's security would already know something was wrong. The car stopped outside a warehouse. The man escorted her inside, where Dmitri waited. He was older than Yeager, maybe 50, with cold eyes and a cruel mouth. He looked at Samantha like she was a commodity, something to be appraised and used. "Miss Clark, how kind of you to join me. Did I have a choice?" "No, but I appreciate your cooperation nonetheless." Dmitri circled her slowly. "You are aware, I assume, of what Yeager Denisov has done to deserve my attention. I'm aware he's made enemies. I'm assuming you're one of them." "Very good. He took something from me. Territory, money, respect. I intend to take something from him." Dmitri's smile was reptilian. "You." Samantha's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. "I'm not a thing to be taken. No, you are Denisov's woman. That makes you valuable. I'm my own woman, and Yeager doesn't negotiate with terrorists." "Oh, I think he will, for you." Dmitri pulled out his phone, snapping a photo of Samantha. "A little proof of life for him to chew on while he considers my terms." Before he could send the photo, the warehouse lights. In the darkness, Samantha heard shouts, gunfire, chaos. She dropped to the ground like she'd been trained, covering her head, making herself small. The firefight lasted less than 2 minutes, and then the lights came back on. Yeager stood in the center of the warehouse, gun in hand, surrounded by his men. Dmitri was on his knees, bleeding from a shoulder wound, disarmed and defeated. Yeager's eyes found Samantha, and the raw relief on his face was almost painful to see. "You hurt?" he demanded. "No, I'm okay." He crossed to her in 3 strides, pulling her up and into his arms, crushing her against him. "I thought I had lost you when the security team reported," his voice broke. "I'm okay," Samantha repeated, holding him just as tightly. "I remembered what you taught me. Stay calm, watch for openings, trust that you would come. Always, I will always come for you." Behind them, Dmitri laughed bitterly. "How touching, the monster." Yeager released Samantha carefully, making sure she was steady, before turning to Dmitri with an expression of ice. "You made a critical error. You touched what is mine. She is just a woman. She is everything." Yeager's voice was soft, deadly. "And you will pay for putting your hands on her. Not today, not here. But you will pay, Dmitri. I promise you that." The authorities arrived shortly after, real authorities that Yeager had apparently alerted before launching his rescue. Dmitri was arrested on a dozen charges, his empire beginning to crumble before he even made it to the police car. Yeager took Samantha home to his penthouse and didn't let her out of his sight for the next 48 hours. He held her while she processed what had happened, the fear she hadn't let herself feel during the kidnapping finally surfacing in the safety of his arms. "I am sorry," he said over and over. "I am so sorry. It's not your fault. It is. My world, my choices brought this to you." Samantha pulled back to look at him. "And my choice to stay, my choice to be with you. You didn't force this on me, Yeager. I knew the risks. Knowing and experiencing are different things. Yes, and now I've experienced it and I'm still here." She cupped his face. "I'm still choosing you. Why, after everything? Because I love you." The words came out simple, true, undeniable. "I love you, Yeager Denisov, all of you. The danger, the protectiveness, the past you carry, the man you're trying to be. I love you." Yeager stared at her like she'd performed a miracle, like she'd given him something he'd never dreamed of having. "I love you," he said roughly. "I have loved you since the moment you faced down Ashford with dignity intact. I have loved you through every conversation, every laugh, every stubborn refusal to be anyone other than yourself. You are the best thing in my life, Samantha, and I will spend every day trying to be worthy of you." They came together then, finally, inevitably. The kiss was deep and desperate, months of restraint breaking like a dam. Yeager lifted her easily, carrying her to his bedroom, and Samantha went willingly, ready to cross the final boundary they'd maintained. That night, they made love with the intensity of people who'd nearly lost each other, who understood how fragile and precious their connection was. Yeager was reverent and passionate in equal measure, learning her body with the same focused attention he gave to everything important in his life. Afterward, wrapped in his arms, Samantha felt a peace she'd never known. This dangerous, complicated, impossible man was hers, and she was his, and somehow that was enough. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now we live, we build a life together. I have been making changes, transitioning more of my business to legitimate enterprises. It will take time, but I want a future where you are safe, where we are safe." Yeager kissed her forehead. "If you will have me, I want to marry you. Not soon, not until you are ready, but someday. I want you to be my wife." Samantha's throat tightened with emotion. "Ask me again in a year. When we've survived whatever else your world throws at us." "A year. I can wait a year." His arms tightened around her. "I would wait a lifetime if necessary." They fell asleep like that, tangled together, two people who'd found home in the most unlikely place. The year that followed was a testament to their commitment. Yeager slowly dismantled the more dangerous aspects of his empire, weathering the resistance from rivals and associates with the same cold efficiency he'd built it with. Samantha finished her degree, started a freelance design business, and became an equal partner in every sense. She learned to navigate his world without losing herself. He learned to trust that she wouldn't break, wouldn't leave, wouldn't abandon him when things got difficult. Together, they were stronger than either had been alone. Exactly 1 year after Dimitri's attack, Yeager took Samantha to the rooftop of his building. The city spread out below them, glittering and vast, full of possibility. "1 year," he said, taking her hands. "You told me to ask again in a year." Samantha smiled, her heart full. "I did. Samantha Clark, you are the bravest, strongest, most remarkable woman I have ever known. You walked into my world and transformed it. You made me believe in futures I had given up on. You chose me when you had every reason to run." Yeager dropped to one knee, producing. "Will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, my home?" The ring was perfect, elegant, and understated, a single diamond that caught the city lights. Samantha pulled him to his feet, cupping his face in her hands, her eyes bright with tears. "Yes, yes, I'll marry you." Yeager's smile was radiant, transformed, the expression of a man who'd found salvation in the most unexpected place. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then kissed her with a tenderness that promised forever. Below them, the city hummed with life. Above them, stars fought to shine through the light pollution. And between them, two people who'd found each other against all odds held tight, ready to face whatever came next. Together. Hey, loves, I won't lie, this story stayed with me. Sometimes life puts us face to face with danger just to show us how strong we really are and how love can appear where we least expect it. If this story made your heart beat a little faster, then it was worth telling. Tell me in the comments what you felt, and don't forget to follow the channel for more intense stories, unexpected romances, and powerful twists. Big hugs, and I'll see you in the next story. Bye-bye.